We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And I has a sad. I has a sad to report.
Oh, is this a Switch 2 thing?
Nintendo did not email me. They have not invited me yet. And there's weird things because I'm following the coverage of okay, when have the invitations started to go out and who's getting them and all that type of stuff. And there's reports that they've, in some areas, apparently not mine, they've already opened it up to we gave out all the invitations and the orders are just open now on the Nintendo.com website. And I'm
but not for you.
Not for me. And I never got an invitation. And mine still says, oh, just wait. You're in the queue. Once we have available, we'll invite you, which might be after launch day. We don't know, says Nintendo.
Oh,
but that part did not work out. So I haven't checked yet with local GameStops in my area, which are being rebranded back to EB Games, which is what we used to have in Canada, Electronics Boutique. And
yeah, we had those here. Didn't
okay.
we?
I don't
feel
know.
like we did.
Well, we certainly had them here. We had Electronics Boutique, and then GameStop, the American company, bought them up, rebranded them to EB Games, and then eventually rebranded EB Games to just GameStop. But now in Canada, I think there's new ownership or new management or something or other going on, and they're like, yeah, we're getting rid of the GameStop branding and going back to EB Games, but not Electronics Boutique. But anyway, all that aside, that is to say they're probably going to be one of the only outlets that actually has non-pre-order units on launch day that you can just, line up early in the morning and just get one without having had a pre-order. But I have to check and all that type of stuff. So anyway, I have not yet secured my third Switch 2 pre-order. That is the upshot of all of that.
So you have two for your
niece and nephew.
The niece and nephew, and then none for you.
Correct.
How do you have time to play video games?
I don't.
I don't understand.
I don't.
You are a full-grown adult.
I have not turned on
my
Xbox Series X in 3.5 years. Literally not even powered it up.
You power it up, it's going to take 4 hours to do all the updates.
No kidding. Yeah, my PlayStation 5 has been powered on when I think the last time. No, I powered it on since I got the VR2 with Gran Turismo. I have powered it on since then, but I think only once since then. So I am not making use of these expenditures. But I have played my Switch a fair amount. I've played a bunch of Mario Party and stuff like that. So Switch 2 will get more usage than either PlayStation or Xbox. This is quite certain in my case.
Okay. Yeah. So did I mention that my son was on a road trip on this podcast?
You sure did, yeah. Well, you mentioned the whole road trip and then going to the caves and the camping that you didn't think he was going to survive. That was all mentioned last week.
Okay. He's back.
Okay, good.
There was a little bit of drama, and we think one of the kids got altitude sickness. But he did decide. They did decide. I think they never not decided. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to talk him out of doing this week-long hiking, camping thing. Yeah. Because they were ill prepared. They had no equipment.
Not a thorough plan was in place.
Trust me, bro, was the thorough plan that they had, by the way. Yeah. But they did attempt to do it. They decided they were only going to do a couple of days. They were going to hike in, sleep a night, maybe hike another night, hike in a little bit further, and then sleep again, and then do it in reverse. Just 3 nights. But I think after the first night, they ended up having to turn around because one of the kids started getting the symptoms of altitude sickness. So, and they were so ill prepared that people were like, "Can we take your picture? Because we've never seen anybody try to do this with what you're carrying. Because your guys are so ill prepared for this that we want to document. We're gonna share this with our friends and laugh, I guess, or maybe look for you on milk cartons." They were using socks for mittens. It was There was snow involved, and they're from Florida. High performance slides is what they were wearing. No, I think they had tennis shoes, but they had tennis shoes. They didn't have hiking. People were going in there with crampons and poles and skis, and my son's in there with a backpack full of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and a hope and a dream. So yes, but he's back. He has lived. His friends have all lived. They saw a lot of great stuff. That is the main thing,
at least. Yep.
Yeah, they saw a lot of great stuff. They had a very good time, and maybe they learned a lesson. I don't think so, because I said, "Are you going to tell me that I was right?" And he was like, "Well, I mean, you weren't really right." I'm like, I think all the people trying to take your picture would agree with me that you guys shouldn't be doing this. And he's like, "Oh, we almost immediately saw a bear." And then he shows me like the pictures of the bear. The bear is on the trail. There's a trail, and the bear is just going along the trail. I'm like, he's just looking for the next person to come by. I mean, it's like a grizzly bear or a brown bear. It's some sort of brown bear.
I'm sure it's
it's out in California,
and I'm sure it's like he's been fed by other people in the past, so.
Or on other people in the past.
I doubt that.
Anyways, so I'm just like, he's like so excited, but I'm like, you guys really don't have a good sense of self-preservation. Yeah. Like, none of this is going well. So, but yes, they all had a good time. Everybody came back safe. Okay. Nobody got seriously hurt. But yeah, it was. I mean, he's got great stories and great pictures that he won't show me all of. Yeah. I will say that.
Nothing suspicious about that.
No. Let me go through your pictures. Nope. I'm like,
I will show you a curated collection.
Let me put together a what do they call it? A something deck? It's like I don't know. It's something deck. It's the equivalent of the PowerPoint presentation, but they call it something
like
else.
Like a slide deck?
These days. Slide deck maybe is what it's called. I don't remember. Let me put together a slide deck for you, Dad. Yeah, so he is back. He came back yesterday. So that was Monday, the day after Mother's Day. But we knew he was on his way, and he is sleeping in the other room. So if you hear some sort of strange banging noise, he will have finally roused? There's a T in there. Yeah. Roused himself and is getting something to eat.
Okay.
But yes, he has survived, and I hope everybody had a good Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And everybody enjoyed themselves. We went to, my parents' house, and we had steak, and I cooked for everybody, and
nice.
It was great. It was nice.
I have
low key.
Slightly home theater related Mother's Day story, because I got my mom the usual token gifts that you get for Mother's Day, and then also she needed some new fridge magnets, so got her those. But then I've been just looking at their TV setup, which of course I helped set up like years ago. But we've got those SVS, the first generation of the Prime wireless speakers.
Yeah.
So not the newest generation, but the original generation, which were physically a little bit smaller, actually have those laying on their sides, kind of like you have with your KEF speakers, so that they're not quite as tall, and therefore, because they're just on the same stand as the TV. So before the stand that came with their LG OLED, it would be too low. The speakers would be blocking part of the front of the screen. So we just got some of those almost like stick feet type of ones that go into the Visa mounts. But it's just kind of feet, and that worked really nicely originally, because they used to have a cable box that lived on top of the TV stand underneath the TV, and that having the legs there gave it room for it to sit on there without it blocking anything. But since then, the cable equipment, it's much smaller, can go inside the cabinet now. So I've just been like, with those legs, they look a little bit spindly, and you can kind of see the wires hanging down behind and all that. I'm like, I can tidy that up. So I got one of the universal stands that goes into the Visa mount. So I set all that up on Mother's Day, and got some skinny HDMI cables so that they could go into the clips on the back of that stand, because it's one of those swivel stands. The stalk in the middle is not that wide, so I got some skinnier HDMI cables, and so a little home theater related on Mother's Day there.
Yeah, got her something that she neither wanted nor appreciates.
She does appreciate it. Everyone appreciates it. My dad appreciates it too, because they're like, yeah, that does look tidier. It does look neater. And actually, it put the TV at a slightly better height than it was, and also it can swivel now, which is nice, because they got a fairly wide living room, so if they want to swivel a little bit,
swivel is always
much
important.
easier. Yeah.
Good. So I didn't watch anything. I mean, we started watching Reacher. My wife wants to cancel Amazon Prime for obvious reasons. This is not the reason, but it is also a reason because we didn't realize that this was happening, so we haven't used it in so long.
Okay.
But Amazon Prime has got commercials all over it now, and it's very annoying.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's $3 a month to get rid of them, and also to get back Dolby Vision, because Dolby Vision is gone unless you pay the extra $3. There's still HDR10, but not. I think even 10 Plus is on there, but not Dolby Vision unless you pay the $3 extra. But the ads are all over, and as I've mentioned, they're not carefully placed. They just show up at random moments based on time, I believe, and not anything to do with scene changes.
So this is Reacher. I feel like the commercials are maybe better placed.
Okay.
They do.
Well, it is
like
one of their top shows, so maybe they put a modicum of care into that one. Yeah.
Yeah, into that one. And that show is I will continue to say that man walks weird. I don't know what.
Well, yeah, he weighs like 380 pounds on a frame that shouldn't be supporting that much weight. So
I don't know. It's just, and I don't mean this as an insult to him or that I think he's doing anything. Just to me, he doesn't look like it's like a human inside there.
Yeah, he's about to tip over. And not because he's fat. It's all muscle. It's 380 pounds of pure muscle. It's insane.
And, great. I mean, it's been, and so far the show has been fine. And it's not so, like I said, with my wife, she likes things that are a little bit easier to follow. And we do discuss things as we go through because she gets a little confused because she's not really paying that close of attention. And, but she does like that show quite a bit. So we are watching that. And then after that, we are canceling Amazon Prime.
Okay. That's just keeping them alive over there. Well, I watched the movie, continuing on, watching all of the 2025 Oscar Best Picture nominees. And I went for it this week. The longest by far, The Brutalist. I did watch The Brutalist this week.
I had a friend that texted me from that movie.
Yeah.
Because there's an intermission.
There is an intermission. It is included in the version that you get at home.
And she texted me and said, I'm halfway through this movie and I still don't know what the hell it's about.
Oh, okay.
I was like, oh. I said, what's it called? And she said, The Brutalist. And at that point, I had no idea what it was. I was like, that sounds like a boxing movie. How can you not know what it's about?
Not the Pugilist.
Well, I mean, the UMC, that's brutal, right? It could be the Brutalist. That makes sense. And then I found out it was about architecture. And I do like Brutalist. Yeah, I do like that architecture, but that's just my own personal. I don't think that.
Right.
I don't think it's the best architecture out there, but aesthetically, I find it interesting.
Sure. And there's a clear history and a reasoning behind it, given the time period, 1950s when it came out, or rose to popularity in any case. But yes, so this starring Adrian Brody. Also starring Guy Pearce and Felicity Jones, and then so written and directed by Brady Corbett. And so this movie, so just going in, the only thing I knew about it is that it starred Adrian Brody and was about brutalism, architecture. But this is not some kind of love letter to brutalism or even to architecture, which is kind of good for me because I don't know that much about architecture. I wouldn't appreciate on that level. Honestly, the thing that came to mind for me watching this movie is that I don't know if this was intentional or if I'm just completely bringing this on my own, but I felt like it was Kantian philosophy that was kind of driving this, Immanuel Kant. Mm-hmm. The thing in itself, right, is sort of the most famous phrase that you would get from that philosophy, and the idea that, first of all, we're driven by duty more than we are by... than anything else, that duty is our main reason that you should be doing things, and then that you can never really know anything. You can never really know the thing in itself because we can only perceive things. And so everything is driven by our perception, and we will never have all of the information, and there will always be things unknown to us. But that things do exist in and of themselves. And so brutalism ties into that because it's the building materials are visible, right? That's the whole thing about brutalism is that everything...
let's take a second. Brutalism, for those of you that don't know, is if you've ever seen a building that looks like they didn't finish it but then just started living in it anyways, that's brutalism.
Yeah, all the steel is exposed, the concrete's exposed, everything's unfinished, the imperfections are on display. Yeah.
So if you were like let's say you so it's like a concrete bunker.
Yeah.
And you're like, you hung a picture someplace.
Sure.
And then you say, I don't want this picture to be here anymore. So you take it off, and there's a hole and a crack and like a little bit of the concrete splintered off.
Mm-hmm.
You just leave all that. You never patch it. You never try to make it look normal.
Yeah.
All the ductwork that is exposed, all the wires are exposed. I mean, not necessarily exposed, but there's, you're not hiding anything inside of anything.
That's
so there,
right.
there would be like wire tracks, like metal.
There's no aesthetic fascia over things. Yeah. There's no, certainly nothing like a fake wood veneer or anything like that is ever going to be visible.
Stucco, paint, or anything like that. It's just the materials themselves.
It's the materials
I
themselves.
find it interesting. I find that, I like that.
And it does tend to be a lot of 90-degree and 45-degree angles.
Yeah. From a home theater standpoint, I was like, I like this architecture, but I would never want to have a theater in here because, man, it's going to echo like crazy. Like, you have to put a bunch of, like, acoustic panels somewhere. But,
soft materials are not in heavy supply in Brutalism. But so the whole movie, everything about the movie, at least my interpretation of it, was like, so first of all, it's shot on film, this movie, at least the majority of it. The epilogue, there is an epilogue, but the epilogue is shot on video. The epilogue is set in 1980, and it's shot on Betamax video, appropriate to the time period. And so shot on film, and the blemishes in the film, even in the digital version that you download or stream, the blemishes in the film are not hidden. The idea is you can see that it's film. You can see that it's Betamax video. The score is like this fusion of what would you call it? Improvisational jazz and almost pseudo-industrial sounds. And again, it's like, here are the notes. You make sense of it. Like that's what's going on with the score. The movie itself is labeled. Here's Act 1, here's Act 2, here's the intermission, here's Act 3, here's the epilogue. Again, it's like you can see the components of this movie. They are unhidden. Here it is. Here are the components of the writing. Here is the structure visible to you, the audience. So everything about this movie is tying into that idea of the components are visible. Nothing is going to be hidden from you that way. But then it is tying into, like I say, it was bringing to mind the philosophy of Immanuel Kant for me, because this is not a character study. There is a straight linear narrative, but a bunch of things are left unanswered. Things that seemed like they were going to be plot points and set, like if it was a traditional narrative, it's like, oh, they're setting this up, so we have the reveal of it later. Nope, never comes. Explanation never happens, because it is all just presented to you. Here it is. We're not going to cover anything. We're not going to play nice with anything. It's all just, here is everything as it is, and then you will never know certain things because they are the thing in itself. The thing in itself is beautiful, but you might never be able to perceive the thing in itself. It might never make itself known to you, and the whole movie is done that. So I could see why, if you're going in there looking for a story, looking for a traditional narrative, like, there is a story. It's not that it's completely incomprehensible. You're just following the events of Adrian Brody's character's life as they go along in a linear fashion. But if you're looking for some kind of emotional through line, I mean, as much as he is waiting for his wife. So I should preface all of this. Taking place shortly after the end of World War II is when we begin. These are Hungarian Jews. And so they have been separated. They have been displaced. And miraculously, he and his wife have both survived, but separately. His wife is caring for their niece, whose parents were killed during the Holocaust. And so that is certainly there's emotion there. And I appreciated that when they eventually reunite in America, they did, I thought, in some of the best scenes in this movie from an emotional standpoint was that, like, it's so overwhelming. It's so traumatic and unbelievable that they cannot process their emotions. And the only emotion that is able to get out of them is anger. And like that, it ends up being directed at each other, and so like they're not angry at each other, but it's just like, you know how that happens, where it's like anger can sometimes be the only thing that can come out of you when every other emotion is just far too overwhelming. And I thought they portrayed that really, really well. But like everything else, everything being on display. So first of all, Adrian Brody, he was a great pick, because if you want a man who can give you a pained expression, Adrian Brody can give you a pained expression.
He looks like he's got a pained expression just naturally. He's got a resting, pained expression face.
And if you want a man who can clean up and look like $1 million in a well-pressed suit, but then in the next scene look like a strung-out heroin addict, Adrian Brody can do that. No, Adrian Brody.
Guy Pearce could do that too.
Guy Pearce could do that, but he's playing a completely different character. But everyone else around Adrian Brody and Guy Pearce and Felicity Jones. So Guy Pearce, first of all, you talk about chewing the scenery. He was not chewing the scenery. He was chewing the inside of his own cheek in every line that he delivered. Quite like almost literally, you could hear him chewing his inside voice and kind of doing his best impression of like There Will Be Blood, like that type of accent and that type of performance.
Right.
It was way over the top, which I don't think was accidental. I think the idea was that this is a caricature more than a character. It is going to show you the acting because everything in this movie is we're just going to show you the parts. And then Felicity Jones, I thought, was a very strange casting choice. I like Felicity Jones a lot. She's super talented, but I didn't feel like anything that was described about his wife because she doesn't come in until the third act after the intermission.
Okay.
I didn't feel like anything about what they described that she just physically fit the description. Like that's not her fault, but I just thought it was a weird casting choice. And then she just couldn't do the accent. She just couldn't do a Hungarian accent. It sounded really strange coming out of her mouth. And it was just like, it's a little bit odd choice here that you made with that casting. So I'm not quite sure what was going on there. So other thing, just on a technical level, this was shot in VistaVision in a 1.66 to 1 aspect ratio. So I always get a kick out of, slight pillar box bars on the left and right. So I just personally always get a kick out of, all the 2.35 to 1 screen fans who are like, movies are always in wide. I'm like, there's a high prestigious movie that's coming out here. It's taller than normal. Fills up your 16:9 aspect ratio television's height, but not its entire width. So I just personally get a little bit kick out of that. This is a smart movie. I will say the 3.5 hour running time, I did not feel it. I thought it was well paced. It kept my interest throughout. I didn't feel like pausing or taking a break, or I wasn't falling asleep or anything like that when I was watching this. But I will say it felt to me like this was probably in the director's cut about 4 hours and 15 minutes long, because there are some abrupt, out of place editing scene changes where it's like, oh, you just cut a whole scene out there, didn't you? Like, we just smash cut from one thing to another, which was not the style of this movie. It was a little bit, and it was like somebody who was holding the purse strings was like, yeah, we are not doing a 4 hour movie. Like this, at the most, you are getting 3.5 hours, and we are going to cut whatever we need to cut to get it down there. But again, maybe it was intentional. Maybe you were supposed to notice the smash cut because you're supposed to notice that this is a movie that's been edited. It could be thematic, but honestly, it just felt like a scene or two got chopped and it just got smash cut together. So, this is a smart movie, but it's not a particularly enjoyable movie. I'm not like aching to watch it again. Like I say, other than it's just a linear story, there's not really a narrative through it. It's not about the emotion. It is about the philosophy behind these things and showing you all the parts and letting you make your own sense of it. So if that interests you, that's The Brutalist.
There's no chance I'm ever watching this movie. It's just, I don't know how. I'd have to be on a plane, maybe?
Okay.
It's just a lack of time. You know, and I know you're like, you're just got to make time. No. Do I? I just don't have it.
Don't be looking for a satisfying, like, oh, that's why that person did that. Or, oh, that's what that scene where that girl was like running away kind of mysteriously was about. No, you'll never know. I'll just warn you now.
Some people just run away. That's just what happens.
Some people just leave your life and that's it. You never see them again, which is true. It's absolutely true, but it is not narratively satisfying.
It is very brutal.
Could be.
But it is true. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask us by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Come to the website, find our show notes, our shows. Our show notes are Flickr albums to follow along with the images that we will be talking about. Also, links to any products or articles that we'll be mentioning, as well as older shows, of course. I mean, there's a couple of episodes up there already, I think, somewhere. We're in the vicinity of 967 of them. somewhere in that vicinity.
Yep.
You contact us directly. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast, YouTube.com/AVRant. Rob's email is rob@avrant.com. His socials is @FirstReflect. I'm Tom @avrant.com. And I am getting those emails for those of you that are like, oh, you never check those email. I do now check that email because I put it on my phone because I lost my laptop for a while.
Yeah, you did.
And I did get all of the I had a year's worth of podcast episodes on this laptop. That's a lot to lose. So I got all those off and put it on my backup drive.
Good.
All right. We want to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, support the podcast in some way. One of the ways to do that is going to avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, which will take you to a PayPal donation site. So this week we had 3 PayPal donations from Eli. I'm pretty sure it's Eli. It's Eliezer. But Eli, Larry, who we've been calling Lawrence all this time. I think this is his third or fourth.
That'll get mentioned just in a moment here. Yep.
And Tim. So thank you, Eli, Larry, and Tim.
Yeah, I'll say Eliezer because I think we've said that before. I don't know if he wanted to be called something else, but anyway,
I don't remember. That's why I thought my brain said Eli when I looked at it.
Larry, we do know, wants to be called Larry, and Tim, which I imagine he wants to be called Tim. There's not too many ways to interpret that name, but thank you all very, very much for those PayPal donations. We really appreciate that. It could be.
Could be Timothy. Who knows? All right. If you want to support us monthly, you can become one of our patrons. It's a monthly service that will take some money from you, give most of it to us. And we currently have 131 patrons over at patreon.com/AVRant podcast.
That is correct. It is patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big, big thank you to our 131 patrons over there. Really appreciate that.
If you can't support us financially, we completely understand. Just do something to support us and let us know what it is, or do it to us and we will mention it here. So Andrew tried to alert Rob when Walmart Canada briefly had more Switch 2 pre-orders available, but I guess that didn't help.
I was too late, yes. And Walmart Canada was like, hey, follow us on our X account, which I don't use X very much, but they're like, follow us there. We'll alert you when we have more pre-orders. That never happened. Why do they sign up for our email alert? Never comes. Follow us on X. We'll
but
put
now
a post
they have your email address. I mean, that's how the scammers get it. Yeah. We also got some notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going through. I don't know. I think somebody's given somebody a jet this week. This has
happened. Let's just say changes in the papacy. We have a new pope. We didn't mention that before.
That is true.
Yeah.
From Chi-Town.
From Chicago. That's right. First time.
Yeah. First time. First American, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
That's what they said.
Got notes of gratitude from Tom from Prague, which I would like to go to Prague. I've wanted to go to Prague for a very long time. Prague is beautiful. Infinite Gary, who didn't think he had any interest in watching A Complete Unknown, but after Rob's review of it last week, he's thinking he might check it out after all.
Which I thought was kind of interesting from the review I gave. I'm like, I wasn't feeling like I gave it, but like it intrigued him enough. I'm like, that's why I just give an honest review, because you never know how someone else is going to respond to it.
That's right. You're like, oh, it doesn't sound like he liked it, but it does sound like something I would like. And that's something that when you give product reviews, they don't understand either.
Yeah.
They're like, just because you mention something that's negative, they're like, you can't mention anything negative. Well, but I'm gonna. And that doesn't mean that people won't buy it. People then go, oh, okay, so that's the big thing that's wrong with it, and that doesn't bother me.
That's right.
That won't affect me.
Yeah.
And then they'll still buy it. Larry heard us say his legal name Lawrence from the 3 separate PayPal donations he sent to us recently, but he goes by Larry, so we have corrected that. He says he's always meant to donate sooner to show his appreciation, so the 3 donations in quick succession to relieve his own guilt. You don't have to do that, my man, but thank you.
We do appreciate
He has listened for many years now and learned all about all the mistakes he made when he built his own home theater prior to finding us, unfortunately. He's glad we kept the show going through both natural and man-made disasters, and he is a faithful member of the 2 Hour Plus Club, but not quite the 2 Hour Plus.
Yeah, the 2 Hour Club, but not quite the 2 Hour Plus Club.
Okay. Since he's always hit stop when we can't say that part. Anyway, because he doesn't know the secret words. So he's never caught them, but please forgive him, and we literally don't care. But yes, Larry, thank you very much for your donations, and no guilt.
Definitely
people listen. I mean, I'm famous for not donating the things. So you don't Don't feel bad. We also had Sebastian, Henry, Sasi, and Tim send us notes of gratitude.
Yeah.
So thank you to all of you.
That's right. I'll say the names. It was Tom, Infinite Gary, Larry, Sebastian, Henry, Sasi, and Tim. Thank you very much for your notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
So in the news, and I sent this link to Rob like right after the podcast.
That's right.
It came through. Right after we finished recording last week, some huge news for the home theater industry was announced. Masimo and Harman, a Samsung company, have agreed to a deal that will have Harman acquiring the former Sound United brands, which is Masimo Consumer, for those of you that don't remember, for $350 million. The deal will, of course, require regulatory approval, but they hope to complete the purchase by the end of the year. Masimo paid $1.025 billion to acquire Sound United back in 2022, but the immediate and lasting drop in Masimo's stock price eventually led them to ousting Masimo's founder and former CEO and separating Sound United into Masimo Consumer, to the Masimo Consumer subsidiary, and to try to protect Masimo's stock price because they make like hospital stuff or something.
Hospital equipment. Yep.
Yeah. After appointing their new CEO late last year, Masimo made it clear they were looking to invest and refocus on their core medical equipment business, and now it appears they have found their buyer in Harman. Harman's getting a deal. That seems very cheap.
Yeah, well, they're definitely taking a loss, but they're just trying to get out of there. So, yeah, I mean, just basic facts. We actually have a question later on that will get a little bit more into detail if we make it to that question, either this week or next week. We shall see. Like, I don't necessarily think this is the greatest thing because, yeah, that's like Harman, Samsung, his actual, the one with the money there, like owning a heck of a lot of the traditional audio and AV companies. But at the same time, like, I'm glad it's not just a private equity firm that's just going to rip it apart to parts and sell everything off and close all of these brands down. Right. Like, do I expect there will be layoffs? Yes, that always happens with a merger like this. Do I expect that maybe some brands are going to be amalgamated or that, they're going to look to streamline manufacturing and share parts and, processes? Like, I expect all of those things. Absolutely. Like, business-wise, it just wouldn't make sense to do anything else, to be completely honest. But at least it being Harman and the people who are there, like, there's going to be some interest in maintaining at least like Marantz, Bowers and Wilkins. Like, they're not just going to completely tear it apart and sell it off for parts. I wouldn't expect anyway. That doesn't feel like what Harman would do with these brands. So that much I'm glad for.
I've always wondered about, these whole, so Onkyo and Integra has always made kind of sense to me because they are a consumer brand and an integrator brand. Yeah. Or
it's a little bit like Honda and Acura, right? Something like that.
But that's not really the case with Denon and Marantz. Marantz is basically competing against Denon, and they're
they've done a little bit of that, a little bit of trying to stratify them. That's happened.
They did, but I mean the differences are so minute as to be unrecognizable.
Almost
to the
just aesthetic at the end of it.
So I think, and I hate saying it, but I think that they need to either combine them into one brand or drop one and just have the other, or really change Marantz into a more custom installer type
something
of
like
product.
that, or higher end luxury type of thing. But like you've also got JBL's own receivers. They still have the Harman Kardon brand. It's been ages since we've seen a Harman Kardon receiver, but they still have that brand under their umbrella. They got Arcam, right? Arcam has AV receivers and pre-pros. They got Mark Levinson, which now they own Class A, from Sound United. So it's like, there's a lot of you can just kind of see like it. Well, that's part of the question that's coming up later, so we'll save it for them. But you can just kind of see where it's like, I don't know if all of that makes it through. It just doesn't quite seem logical, to be honest.
All right. Another news, Emotiva has posted details about their trade-in program to get their newest HDMI 2.1 pre-pro models, the RMC 1 Plus and the XMC 2 Plus, and it's mostly good news. Yeah. First of all, it's starting sooner than expected, like right now.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing our audio-only version, when it releases on May 15th, that's when the trade-in and upgrade program begins. So earlier than summer, well, it's summer here. I'm in Florida. It's been summer for months.
But technically speaking.
What it was, so earlier than summer, which is what was originally posted. And did you catch that we said trade in and upgrade programs. That's the other bit of good news. If you already own an RMC1 or RMC1L or an XMC2 model, you can send it.
No pluses in any of
No
them.
pluses on those.
The old ones.
You can send it in and have it retrofitted with the new HDMI 2.1 power supply, control board, and wireless antenna components, rather than doing a straight trade-in and swap. They're calling this the CR8, the Create upgrade. That's what it is, right? Is it not that?
No, it's just an initialism. It's for certified refurbished 8K, CR8.
Yeah. Create upgrade for certified refurbished 8K. Whatever, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Now for some finer details. Only original owners are eligible for the trade-in program. So if you're a secondhand owner, it's nice that the Create upgrade option exists. The trade-in gives you a brand new 5-year warranty, and the warranty is transferable. The Create upgrade gives you a new wait a second. The trade-in gives you 5 years. The Create upgrade gives you 2-year warranty, and the warranty on the upgrade is not transferable.
Correct.
So if you do the trade-in, you have to provide your original proof of purchase, and Emotiva will give you 50% off your original purchase price, pre-tax, but after any discounts, as a credit towards your purchase of a new RMC1 Plus or XMC2 Plus. If you already own an RMC1 or RMC1L, you can only do the trade-in for an RMC1 Plus. You cannot trade down. I didn't realize it was down for XMC2 Plus.
That's right.
If you trade in for a new RMC1 Plus, it comes with the phono preamp module and balanced input module already installed. Shipping for trade-ins is covered by Emotiva both ways. So that's good. If you do the Create upgrade, you pay $1,500 to upgrade either the XMC2 or the RMC1L. If you're upgrading the RMC1, which doesn't have the L at the end, it costs $1,700 so that you can get the L, I guess.
So you get the Plus.
Yeah, whatever. The upgraded RMC1 units do not include the phono preamp or balanced input modules, but you can pay extra to add them if you want to. You have to pay the shipping fee to send your unit to Emotiva. They will pay to ship your upgraded unit back to you within the continental U.S., so you have to buy a plane ticket or something. Anyone outside the lower 48 states has to pay shipping both ways. There's a big warning, though, subject to availability, and pricing is subject to change without notice. Because, I can't imagine why in the United States right now pricing would be...
And when their things are being manufactured in China.
Tumultuous, yeah. Also, given the price, all the pricing in certain of these states, any quotes on pricing from Emotiva are only valid for 15 days. They're expecting high demand, so expect delays if you don't get in right away. So that's a lot of information that I just had to read and try to understand at the same time.
It's all on their website. We'll have the link so you can go through it at your leisure. Check out the photos of the screen grabs that I took. But I'm glad that the program is actually starting and earlier than they had originally posted. That's good news. But I'm a little bit leery because there's a not completely impossible chance that you send a unit in even though it's been authorized and then they're actually waiting on a container of parts to arrive, and maybe that takes a little longer than expected, and maybe the price changes in the meantime and all those sorts of things. So I'm kind of a little bit. Also, you're going to want to do a calculation on which is the best price for you, because the price for the I send in the unit I already own, I pay to ship it to Emotiva, but then they retrofit it and they ship it back to me on their dime, at least if you're in the lower 48 states. That might be less costly to you than getting a 50% purchase credit, especially if you had a discount, right? If you had a discount and then you're only getting 50% of that back as credit to get the new unit, you might actually save money by doing the retrofit to the certified refurbished 8K upgrade path. So do your calculations.
Great.
That's right.
It's great.
I'm sure that's what they were thinking.
I don't think that any of these companies have anybody in the room that will look at the things that they put out and say
it out loud.
I'm sorry. You realize what that spells, right? It's crazy. All right. We don't have prices, and only one of these models is coming to North America, but Panasonic announced their full 2025 OLED TV lineup.
Yeah.
Dog, settle down.
Panasonic in the OLED game. Tom's distracted by his doggo.
Doing the circle thing. All right. The Z80B. Oh, I'm already loving these names. The Z80B comes in 48, 55, and 65-inch sizes with 3 HDMI inputs, 2 HDMI 2.1 and 1 HDMI 2.0, and a basic OLED.EX panel. Mm-hmm. Is that I'm supposed to say the dot?
I don't know. That's just LG Display's thing to denote what generation they're on.
This is basically the equivalent of LG's B5 series.
Yeah.
So it's the 80B.
That's correct.
Okay. The Z90B series comes in the widest range of screen sizes from 42 up to 77. It gets the premium OLED.EX panel, which means it has a heat sink and can go up to 144 hertz instead of 120 hertz. And it has 4 HDMI inputs, 2 2.1s and 2 2.0s. And none of those are coming to the United States.
Yeah, so that's basically the Z90B series is pretty darn close to the LG C5 series. Okay. But you'll notice no 83-inch screen sizes here from Panasonic 77 is as big as they go in the Panasonic lineup.
All right. The flagship Z95B series will be, though, and it's also packing LG Display's newest 4-stack primary RGB tandem OLED panel, which is, I mean, that's just, everybody knows about that by now.
That's another LG Display thing. That's the LG isn't even using that in their marketing, but Panasonic's like, well, that's what LG Display calls it, primary RGB tandem OLED, so that's what they'll call it.
Design-wise, the 95B has a uniform thickness from top to bottom, and it includes front-firing speakers in a strip along the bottom, kind of like a permanently attached sound bar. Compared to the 3-stack OLED panel used in the 90B and the 80B series, a 4-stack OLED panel is capable of significantly higher full screen and peak brightness, and Panasonic pushes that even further with their heat sink and new thermal flow design. Whatever. And that promotes better airflow from the bottom of the chassis up through the top without any turbulence or whatever.
Yes.
So just dumb. In North America, Panasonic's OLEDs have the distinction of being the only OLED models that support every flavor of HDR, including the dynamically adaptive Dolby Vision IQ and HDR10 Plus adaptive if your ambient light level changes throughout the day. Oh, God help us. Don't do that. That's dumb. Anyways, unfortunately, Panasonic has chosen Amazon Fire TV as their built-in interface and operating system, so ads. So you have plenty of ads, random emails, and interruptions from Alexa, and no ability to do anything unless you sign in to an Amazon account, at least initially. Suck it. Oh,
yeah, like people have been complaining about how Roku has been getting worse and worse, which I agree, it's been getting worse and worse. But to my mind, Amazon Fire TV as the interface is the worst choice of all of them. Like, I will take the Google TV interface over that. I will definitely take LG's WebOS, even though that's been getting worse and worse gradually. But I will take those over that choice. So that's unfortunate. But if you can see your way past that, if you can, about once every 90 days.
I wish you could strip the OSs from these things somehow. You know what I mean?
I know.
I wish you could just strip them. It's annoying.
I mean, Samsung is kind of awful too, because like they force you to sign into a Samsung account and create one if you don't already have one to do anything on the Samsung TV. So I mean, honestly, out of all of them, Google TV, because on the Google TVs, when you first go, they do give you the option of just do a basic setup. I'm not going to sign into Google. I'm not going to have access to all my history and apps. I acknowledge that, but just give me basic setup, and they give you that option. I'm like, okay, good. Like that's still not fantastic, but it's better than all the rest.
Yeah, the Apple TV interface is fine.
But you still have to have your television functioning before you can plug that in and start using it. So, yeah.
I know. All right. So after 8 years of partnership, Sonos has decided to end their Symfonisk series of IKEA products, which included less expensive than Sonos' own, at least, bookshelf speakers, as well as quote-unquote hidden Sonos speakers in the form of picture frame and a couple of different lamps. Mm-hmm. No particular reason was given, and Sonos says they'll continue to support existing Symfonisk products with future software updates, but no new Symfonisk products will be coming, and whatever the remaining stock is left, that's all there is ever going to be. So, collector's items. I guess.
I mean, these were handy, especially for adding surround speakers to an existing Sonos soundbar setup, because they were less expensive. And it's like sometimes, hey, I've got an end table on either end of my couch, and I can put some of these lamps there as my surround speakers, or I can hang these, picture frame ones and change the artwork in there. So that was a nice option. Many people use them that
I wrote
way.
an article about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Too bad.
Yeah. Oh well. The world's going to be a sadder place now. Gurinder took a little... these are comments, I think. Yes, comments now. Gurinder took a little staycation to a resort type of place that's just a few hours from his home. Nobody mentioned it, but when he was looking to connect to the resort's Wi-Fi, he spotted a network that was labeled Theater 2.4G. So when he got up in the morning, he decided to search around a bit and eventually found a door with a sign attached to it, and the sign reads, Theater, maximum occupancy, 24 persons.
Yes.
So you need the code to get it in. So he's curious what setup they've got inside. That's the whole comment?
That's
he didn't
the whole
get in?
comment. He didn't get it. At least at the time that he wrote the email, he hasn't updated.
Oh my God, Gurinder, you're killing me.
It's a tease. A
What
tease
is this,
for next week.
cliffhangers?
That's right.
The cliffhanger action here.
Kept it short and sweet, at least.
I guess so. All right, let's get to these questions. So we got some left over from last week, and then we'll get to the newer ones. Ryan has a basement home theater. The main theater area is 12 by 18 feet long, but then at the back, the left side extends another 17 feet for a double-wide hallway, making the total space into kind of an L shape. Yeah,
quickly hand-drawn diagram, but that's good. It helps us visualize. You can see it on YouTube, or you can follow along in the Flickr album. But yes, there it is.
The ceiling is roughly 7.5 feet high, so in total, with all the doors closed, he's dealing with a little over 2,500 cubic feet of air. Just to get things up and running, he took his old Onkyo SKW 750X subwoofer down there and tried to get its 10-inch, 125-watt slender design to output bass at satisfying levels. About an hour into a movie, you could smell burning plastic coming from that sub, so that didn't work out.
That's not a good sign.
We always like to talk about how you can't break, SVS subs, and people are like, well, I mean, you can't break anything really unless you can, unless you can.
Yeah, there's no DSP controlled. That's one of the subs that used to come with one of their not exactly home theater in a box, but like
or whatever.
No, it was like the bundle packages, the Onkyo speaker packages. So it was like a 5.1 or 7.1 speaker package, which
good
we loved.
Packages.
Those were great. They were good packages.
Good packages. I would recommend those often for not the sub. Anyways, that sub still functions, but the experience has expedited his subwoofer upgrade plans. He wants a pair of subs. He plans to position them with one in the front right corner and the other in the rear left corner of his theater area. He wants all the bass. He wants to feel like he's being punched in the chest. He wants his teeth to rattle. He wants his vision to blur. Okay, you don't need big subs for that. You just need subs that can pressurize the space.
Well, yeah. They are bigger than the Onkyo sub that he was using. That is factual.
It doesn't get smaller. So yeah. The one catch is that at the front of the room, he's only got 20 inches of free space below his projection screen. So whatever subwoofer he gets, it needs to physically fit that restriction. And he fears that eliminates almost all ported models. No, it doesn't.
It does not. We will say how in just a moment.
Yeah, because Rob and I both thought the same thing
at
the same time as we read that sentence. He was leaning towards buying from SVS, probably in the 3,000 or now discontinued 4,000 series. Jesus. I'm going to save you some money. But if the only way to get what he wants is with an upgraded sealed model, he's willing to consider that. Is there something better from a different brand, though, that he's willing to consider that too? So what do we say? What pair of subwoofers should he get? Well, I mean, the thing that people don't really totally get is that the subwoofer really doesn't care what side you put it on. There's no really bottom of a subwoofer. You don't want the driver to be pounding into the ground, or the port to be pounding into the ground. So if a subwoofer is tall and narrow and deep, well, you can set it on its side because it's narrow, and now it's short and wide and deep. So,
and like I will say, there are some designs where it's like a front firing driver, but the ports are down firing. And so those ones, it's like, maybe if you tip it on its side, like maybe in some circumstances that looks a little bit strange or something like that. But any of the ones that are a kind of a typical design, driver on the front and the ports on the front, or driver on the front and the ports are on the back, there is no reason you can't turn that sub on its side and now make it wider, but not as tall.
And I don't know what the he talked about the height difference, but what's
That's
the
right.
width? I mean, could he put a cylinder sub on its side up there? Because
Exactly.
that would work just fine. I mean, it's got a
you could
plate
do
on the bottom.
Yeah, you could do a couple of PC2000 Pros for 2,500 cubic feet. A pair of those would work. And
no problem.
I quite like the idea of a PC2000 Pro for that rear left of the theater area because it is open to the hallway over there, and a cylinder standing up along that left wall is a great choice because it's a much smaller footprint standing up there, and then it's rounded and carpet covered. So if somebody bumps into it, brushes on it as they walk by, nobody's skinning a knee because it doesn't have corners. It's round and it's I like that.
We had our SVS right next to the bathroom door for a long time. I ended up moving it later, but it was right next to the bathroom door. So people would just like rub their hand on it as they went around that little corner into that bathroom door. It's perfect. And it's got like the newer ones have like a flat panel on top, a wooden panel. You put your drink on there, put your popcorn on there, the remote control on there as you walk. Because you're always like, oh, I got this remote in my hand. What am I going to do with it? Take it into the bathroom with me? You throw it right there, and then on your way back. I very much like doing this. Now, if he doesn't like the idea of having...
I was just going to say, you could also have a PC2000 Pro cylinder on that left wall in the rear left, and then have a PB2000 Pro turned onto its side, so that it's its width is now its height and its height is now its width. Like if the cylinder on its side is simply too wide to fit the space you have up at the front of your theater, which we could absolutely imagine that being the situation, but the PB 2000 Pro has the exact same performance, so you can certainly have a PB 2000 Pro paired with a PC 2000 Pro cylinder. They are the same output.
Would actually call SVS and ask them if they could move the logo on the on the grill.
Yeah.
So that it's on one of the sides.
Yeah.
So that you could put it on its side and the logo would still be down.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can do it. I mean, I don't know. They may come off the boat with the logos already attached. But maybe they make the grills there. Who knows? You don't know. Give them a call, because that might work. What other recommendations do you have, Rob?
Yeah, because I didn't want to say that's the only game in town. If you are just like, I really do just want a sealed one. Like there's the little holes where the feet screw in, and I can't stand the idea of those being on the side. They must be on the bottom. And maybe you just really wanted a sealed sub. There is certainly an option from HSU that I can recommend in here. That is their ULS 15, now Mark II version. This is a 15-inch sealed subwoofer. A pair of those would be a very appropriate choice for this room size. It'll give you all the bass. It'll extend nice and deep, and it'll blur your vision with a pair of those. And the price is good on those, too. They do charge about $60 to ship them, or $90 now, I guess, these days. They're up to for the shipping charge on those. Physically, it's like an 18-inch cube. So if you had 20 inches, an 18-inch cube is going to fit in there. But yeah, $960 right now plus the $90 shipping. So yeah, $1,050. That's less expensive than the SVS 2000 Pro series because those are up at $1,100. Free shipping on those, but it's still $1,100. So $50 price savings. So yeah, HSU's ULS 15 Mark II I would definitely consider as an option if that's really, really what you want. You can have a look at it at the very least. We'll have a link for it. And then if you were just concerned, because I know some people, we can try to assure you that in 2,500 cubic feet, either the ones that we mentioned are going to be completely sufficient for what we asked for. Some people are just like, it has to be bigger than that. I cannot live with myself. I have the FOMO, and I've got to get something bigger. That may, I assume you were considering the 4000 series because they are on clearance, so it's a good price savings. But if you're just like, I want 4000 series performance, but at a lower price point than that, then over at Monoprice, their Monolith series, you could go all the way up to their M15, now version 2. As the name implies, that is a 15-inch driver in there in a gigantic ported cabinet. $1,600 includes shipping, but if you get two of them, which you said you're doing, they're $1,500 each, so it's a $200 price savings for getting duals instead of just one of them. So that makes the price lower than even the clearance 4000 series PB 4000 subwoofer. And this one you would definitely have to turn on its side. It is taller than 22 inches, but it is 17.7 inches in width. So it's even slightly lower in profile than the 18-inch cube of the UL S15 from HSU. So those are a couple of options. If you're just like, yeah, I've got to have more than all the bass, and I'll throw that out there.
I want to pay extra to turn it down.
That's right.
Yeah. So, what you're talking about, feeling the bass. We talked about this a lot in the podcast, but we should probably mention it here. It's not in the the really low range.
The punch you in the chest is not. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if it is that you want to have a really visceral feeling, you could do a bass boost in those. In those frequencies that do matter.
And for the blur your vision, because the blur your vision is the really, really low stuff. That is the 20 to 25 hertz stuff is the blur your vision range. Like having a slope up, right? Like putting in an EQ so that there's an upward slope as you're going down to 20 hertz. Like that'll work. But all of these are capable of giving you that in a 2,500 cubic foot space. Like, look, our answer would change if you had a much, much larger room that didn't have doors you could close. We would be talking about different. Well, I'd be pointing you to that M15 V2 if you had a much, much larger room. But yeah, in what you laid out, all of our options will work. And there you go. I think one of those will satisfy.
So he's using an Epson 5050 UB projector. He'd like to buy a replacement lamp. He doesn't need to replace his current lamp immediately, but he'd like to have a spare one on hand. He also wants the full assembly. He's not interested in taking apart the housing and trying to replace just the bulb, which I had to do because I did not read the fine print. Where's the best place to buy the replacement lamp? He wants something as close to OEM as possible. So I think I did the projector screen place.
Okay.
And because they have links to other, is that right? Bulb.
Well, Projector
places?
Central has links to other places.
That's the one. So Projector Central is what I did. I looked to say that like where should I buy my bulb? And they sent you to a bunch of different links. They showed different websites that they trust. And then half of them had the almost identical layout of their website, which made me think they're the exact same place, but with different storefronts. But some of them had lower prices, and I went with the one. So they're pretty honest about those, at least the ones that I went to. They'll tell you, like, this is the OEM one, and it's like stupid expensive. And this is the one that's our brand. That's just like the OEM.
My Projector Lamps is probably the most famous one there, myprojectorlamps.com, and that's the type of thing that they do there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then they'll have and here is the third option, which has a name that somebody smashed the keyboard and said, good enough.
Right.
And we don't know how long it'll last.
And that company's gone next week, replaced by another mishmash of letters. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're pretty honest about what you're getting. And I ordered, and I have ordered multiple times, the one that is their brand, basically.
The middle
their
option.
Like house brand, the middle option. I have the one time I did have to replace the lamp itself is because I was in Australia and I needed a lamp, and I got it from eBay in Australia because I couldn't find anybody that shipped to where I was. Yeah. So that's what I had to do, and it still took a long time, and it was a pain. But
the way that he's asking, I'm inferring that he was looking to save a bit of money. Because otherwise, I'm not. Well, I don't know. I think you would just go to Epson.com and look up the authorized list. But if you're just I just want the OEM and I want the full housing and I want a drop-in replacement, we always point people to avscience.com. They're a great retailer for all projectors, and they definitely cover Epson and Projector Screen, which is Tom mentioned at first there. That's another good retailer, but that's just going to be the regular price. But those places are worth calling on the phone, talking to somebody, because the add to cart price on their website is going to be higher than they're willing to sell it to you if you just give them a call on the phone. And they're very, very nice and knowledgeable people to talk to. So we can point you there as well, but that's going to be just an Epson branded replacement lamp at pretty darn close to MSRP.
Right. So in a different setup, he's got an LG B4 OLED TV with a Sennheiser Plus soundbar, which he compared against the Sonos Ultra and thought it sounded a lot better. And his main source is the Amazon Fire TV 4K Max. They've got to stop with these stupid names. I mean, they just keep tacking stuff on there. So the Amazon Fire TV stick is plugged into the TV, and then he's using an eARC to pass the audio through the Sennheiser soundbar. Most of the time it works and it sounds great, but once in a while the lip sync will be way off, or you might get video but no audio at all. These glitches typically happen when he switches to a different app, or he changes media, or particularly when he pauses and then hits play again. Cycling the power on the soundbar always gets it working again, but it's annoying. Is there a fix? Is HDMI-CC to blame? Is this an HDMI handshake issue? Will a different soundbar make it all work smoothly all of the time? Your best bet is to, it's something to do with the handshake there, and
I mean, we are talking. It's a changing in format, or at the very least, a pause in the signal. So it is reestablishing a handshake, and that's causing the video to show up, but not the audio. Yeah,
right. So what's the solution? The solution is to not rely on the CEC, which you're doing because you're going from the TV and then back down to the soundbar. So plugging into the, I don't know what how the soundbar works.
Yeah,
plugging into the soundbar and then
input.
Yeah. So using the soundbar as kind of your receiver. So you plug into the soundbar takes it and then just shoots the video up and lets it do everything. Should work more consistently, would be my guess.
Yeah. So take your Amazon Fire TV 4K Max stick device and plug it into the HDMI input on the Sennheiser soundbar itself instead, and that way it's going to get to handle the audio before the video, and then the video gets passed along to your LG television. So that would be the way to handle that one. Still can't promise there's never going to be a glitch. There still might be a glitch from time to time, but that tends to work better than relying on eARC and CEC.
Okay. I'm looking at this stupid speaker that you linked up. Hold on.
Okay.
On a completely different topic, Sonos' smallest speaker model is the Era 100, and you see a bunch of people in the Sonos Facebook group claiming that a single Era 100 all by itself can play stereo sound. That doesn't make any sense to Ryan. To him, stereo has always meant two speakers, left and right. What's happening? I can't see. Okay. A little bit with at least a little bit of separation, but when he checked, even Sonos' own marketing seems to claim that a single Era 100 speaker all on its own can produce stereo sound. Now, he's aware that you can pair two Era 100 speakers together, and it makes sense to him that would produce stereo sound, but the Facebook group customers, first of all, terrible source of information, and Sonos' own marketing says that pairing two Era 100s makes for an even richer stereo sound, but that a single can still produce stereo sound by itself. So what's the deal, yo? Is he correct in thinking a single Era 100 is just mono, or is a single Era 100 genuinely producing stereo sound somehow? So the only way you can do this, and I've seen lots of speakers that have claimed it, is to have essentially tweeters, but sometimes tweeters and woofers paired that are on different sides playing the stereo sounds. Yep. So if you think of it like one of those surround speakers that we used to, trapezoidal shaped speakers that we used to put on our walls.
Dipoles or bipoles.
Yeah, it looks like that. So is it producing stereo sound? It is. It is, because
technical level, yes. There are separate left and right sounds being generated independently through independent drivers.
How would you experience this? You would put your nose on it. Basically,
close.
You would have to put your nose on it, and then the speakers would be far enough away that you could, in theory, do this. And of course, they're probably doing something with DSP or something to try to make it sound in phase, trying to make it sound more stereo-esque. And people are dumb, so they're going to believe anything that they spend a bunch of money on this probably. So yeah, I don't see that this is true stereo sound any more than, a soundbar that claims to be Atmos is true Atmos.
Sure. But it's also not an outright lie, in that it is not actually compressing it down to a single mono channel for playback. They say right in their tech specs there are two angled tweeters, and there are 3 drivers total, so they are sharing the mid-range and bass frequencies through a single woofer, but there are 3 independent amplifiers, one for each of those drivers, and so that is how they're claiming that it is stereo sound out of a single speaker housing.
Yeah. So he says this is AVRant, right? Well, he wants to rant for a bit. Why do all of the streaming services think it's okay to charge extra in order to get 4K Dolby Vision Atmos now? It's ridiculous. They're all forcing us to pay for the highest possible tier just to get the best image and sound quality available. Is it purely greed that's behind this? Is there anything that we as consumers can do other than fully unsubscribing? Like, instead of tiers and being forced to pay for the highest one, why not have the base plan and then your choice of add-ons? Why is it all or nothing just to get 4K and Atmos? That's just garbage. Okay, so we're right back to people complaining about cable and saying, I didn't want this channel. I would like a discount for you taking it away from me because I don't want that. So what you're asking for is essentially like a la carte. So like I don't
features.
I don't need those features. I need these features. I don't want to pay yeah, I'm not, I don't want this tier that has this. I want the tier that has that. I don't care about commercials. Go ahead and give me commercials, but I want Dolby Atmos.
Right.
I don't care about Dolby Atmos. But I want Dolby Vision and no commercials. You know what I mean? So it's sort of that sort of thing. So why are they doing it? I mean, it's not greed. I mean, it is greed.
There's a little bit of greed in there.
They want to make money, but we have been underpaying for streaming services. It's been a loss for a very long time, and we can't continue. This is just me. We can't continue to want to have quality programming, quality movies, quality TV shows, and not pay for it in some way. We need to pay for it in some way. So either we're paying for it with our subscription money, or paying for it by going to the movie theaters and watching the movies there, which I do not do. Remember, I am the hypocrisy man over here because I refuse to go to the movie theaters. But even though I really do want to go see the Thunderbolts, I mean, I really want to go see the Thunderbolts. I really want to see it. Or we have to pay for it by watching ads. That's just all there is to it. Yeah. So we have not been paying because they're like, once we get all these subscribers, then we'll start seeing the return on investment. And they're like, well, we're not seeing the return on investment, so we need to raise the prices. But we need to give them a reason to spend more money, so we will put the better stuff in the higher tiers, and that way, or we'll make them bundle things like Disney does, or we'll make them watch ads like Amazon and Peacock do. In some way, they need to make money in order to pay for all these shows. And while I don't like it any more than you do, railing against it and saying you should give it to me for free is just not
not necessarily for free, but I mean, like I agree with him that like consumer friendly wise, I would prefer here's the base and then add on the features that you want. I would prefer that personally. I like that. They do all seem to be enamored with this idea of we have a good, better, best system, right? And everyone picks the middle because that's what they're aiming for whenever you do that. So they do all seem enamored with that, and it doesn't have to be that way. There are other ways of upselling people on things. So I agree with him. I would prefer here's the base and then add on the things that you want, and that way you don't have to add everything that you don't. But chances are, like cable bundling, right? Like, because there was a thing where you could get the base cable plan and then you could add on individual channels. But as soon as you added like 3 individual channels, you were better off getting one of the bundle channel things, because price-wise, you'd be getting more for less. And you're like, well, I don't really need all the things, but it's $1 less than just adding the 4 channels that I do want. And so it would be a similar thing, I would think, right? As soon as you add like 2 or 3 features, all of a sudden it'd be better to just pay for the next tier. Like, that's how they would end up pricing things. So realistically speaking, I don't love it. I'm with you. But that's where we are.
Yeah. Tony has a den with a simple 2.2 speaker setup in it. He's using an Onkyo TX-NR 5100 receiver, and he's got a pair of SVS SB2000 subs. The dimensions of the den are roughly 12 by 15, but it's completely open on one side to the rest of the house, and the den is in the corner of his house as a whole. So he's got a right wall, a front and back walls, but no left wall, more or less no left wall. He only cares about one seat, and it's located 2 feet from the back wall with 0 option to move it. One of his SVS SB2000 subs has to go in the front right corner of the den. Again, no option to move it. And the other sub can go anywhere along that back wall or potentially somewhere along the right side wall. He's pretty sure Onkyo's Accu EQ isn't going to magically optimize things, so what is the best trial and error process for figuring out the optimal location for that second sub in this setup? If he looks at Rob's 12-step guide, that would have him position the second sub on the back wall and on the left side diagonally from the sub in the front right corner. No, it wouldn't. The second sub is not going anywhere outside of the den, so that would be as far apart as across the total space from one another as the 2 subs can get. That only works in an enclosed space, so I understand what you're saying.
No, but I have said that even in an irregularly shaped room, even in a room with openings, just try to get them as far apart and across the room as you can, and that would be the case. Yeah, that's as far apart and across the room as they can be if you're keeping it within the borders of the theater area.
In your situation, I'm not going to recommend that, by the way, but we'll see what we get to, what Rob suggests and what I suggest. So Rob's guide would then have him fully adjust or adjust the fully variable phase of the rear sub, physically closer to a seat than the front right sub, until a repeating bass sweep sounds as uniform as possible. But since he only cares about that one seat, is this still the very best method in his case? He's got a UMic 1 and actually kind of enjoys taking measurements with Room EQ Wizard. Would he be better off literally moving the second sub little by little and measuring over and over? What's going to be the most efficient iterative process? Okay. This is what, if this was my room, this is what I do. First of all, you care about one seat. So that's it. Second of all, most of the bass is just, not most, but much of the bass is exiting the room anyways. So I don't really see the point of doing all of this because you're in a very small space and there's a very big space, and therefore the bass is just going to get lost out there and not come back in and do a bunch of reverberations and stuff that we would normally be worried about. So putting subs across the room from each other, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. What I would do is I would take one sub and I would do the crawl for bass method, which we've talked about a lot. So you only have a couple of spots in your room that you can put a subwoofer. You've established that.
Well,
so
it sounds like he has a fair amount of latitude along the right wall and along the back wall. It's really just that he was thinking if you're going to have two subs separated physically, then one of them is the front right corner, that's staying. Then the other one can be somewhere along the right wall or somewhere along the back wall. But if you're only talking about a single sub, it could be somewhere along the right wall, somewhere along the back wall, or in the front right corner if that happens to work.
I would put one sub in your seat. And then crawl for bass in all the spots that you have available to you, right? And then I would find the one that sounded the most even and put both the subs there.
Yeah, stack the subs there or have them side by side in that one location,
I would stack them because I think that looks cool. But maybe you don't think it looks cool, but I would stack them. I would put them right on top of each other, one on top of the other, and now you're going to get more. I mean, it really doesn't make that much difference if they're across the room or not, as far as the more bass. Technically, they're on top of each other. Therefore, you're going to get a little bit more bass boost than you would normally. But then you EQ for that one seat, and you're done. To me, that's how I would do it, and it's simply because you care about one seat. You don't have an infinite number of places you can put the two subs, and there's the big opening that's going to be sucking out most of the bass anyways. So you want as much bass boost as you can possibly get.
The more headroom is more beneficial to you.
And you can do this with the UMic 1. You can do this with the UMic 1 if you want. But I think you can do it just as easily with your ears because you're not going for the absolute perfect. It's not, nothing's going to be.
You're really just looking for the spot that doesn't have any dips in it.
If you've got suck outs.
If you've got a boost at some point in the bass sweep that's playing on repeat, that's okay because you can EQ that down. It's very easy to EQ down a hump, but you can't fill in a dip. So you're really just looking for the spot that doesn't have any dips. Yeah, I totally agree. This is a bass crawl situation. That's going to be great for the single seat that you care about. Bass crawl is going to be the most efficient, most time-saving way to do this. That all put aside, if you were determined, or if this was a slightly different room situation, and you're like, I have one seat that I really care about, I have one location for a sub that's fixed, and then I have some latitude for the location of the second sub, what you can do there is you can take the measurement in your seat with your UMic 1 and Room EQ Wizard. You can take the measurement of the fixed location sub, so the front right sub in your case, and you can just look at what is the native output of that subwoofer, because those locations are fixed. Your seat location is fixed, that sub location is fixed, so you're just looking at what is the response that I'm getting there. Then, I mean, this is trial and error, this is a number of measurements, but you take several measurements at all the places that, maybe the sub could live somewhere along that right wall, maybe it's somewhere along the back wall. You take a bunch of different measurements there, or actually what you would do is put a sub in the seat. I forgot that part. Put a sub in a seat and take measurements along that right wall and along the back wall with just the sub in the seat playing. And then what you're actually looking for is the location in these variable locations where you're measuring that is as close to the inverse of the first sub, right? So you're looking at the graph of the first sub, and then you're looking for the inverse of that, so that where it's a hump from the fixed location sub, now it's a dip for that second sub, and where it's a dip, now it's a hump, and those kind of flatten each other out if you do that. So it's not super efficient, it takes time, it is trial and error, but it is still faster than literally moving both subs and listening over and over. It is faster than that.
Yeah. So what I was saying, just to make sure that it's clear, You can do this test with one sub on your seat. You
Yes.
don't, since you're going to place them both in the same location, you don't need to put both subs on your chair. One sub is going to be fine because you're listening to the response. You're not trying to get all the output. You don't need all the output. You just need to hear the response and listen for those suckouts. Those will sound like the bass literally disappears. I mean, it's like someone takes the volume knob and turns it down, sometimes to 0 or sometimes just lower. It will not be subtle. If you're like, I think it might be a dip, it's not. It's a dip when it's a dip. You will hear it.
The sweep is going
dramatic. It's exactly what it should sound like. That is exactly what it'll sound like.
If that's what you hear, don't put the sub there. That's bad.
Don't put the
spot.
sub. That's not the spot.
If the bass sweep does that, if the bass sweep goes and it just had that little hump in it, that's an okay spot. You can even that hump out very easily.
Now that we know Rob can sing, he's going to have to sing to us every week.
I see.
So what if you were to replace his NR5100 with the Onkyo NR7100, which comes with DRAC? Would it still be best to go through all the trial and error to find the best location for a second sub, or could having DRAC simplify things for him? I mean, so what he's asking is, can I just throw money at this problem? And I mean, if you can, then what you want to do is throw money at a installer who will come and do this for you, because it is still best to find the best location for the sub before you run DRAC. You don't say, oh, now that I have DRAC, I can just put this thing on the ceiling, or I could throw it, in wherever spot I want in this room, and DRAC will just fix it. That's just not the way it works.
No, you need the I'm not even talking about the version of DRAC Live bass control that you can optionally add to the RZ70, because the RZ70 will give you independent trim levels and delays, but not completely independent EQ for the two separate subwoofers. And you need the full-blown, I would have independent levels, delays, and EQ for both subwoofers plus my front left and right speakers. That version of DRAC Live bass control exists, but that's what you would need for I'm just going to put the two subs kind of across the room from each other and then let the automated system sort it out. You need the full-blown version for that, and the NR7100 cannot do that. None of the Onkyos can do that version of it. You're talking about a considerably different system for that. So, nope.
All right.
Set it up manually first.
All right. Tom from Prague. Again, Tom, I would like to visit you because I think Prague is a beautiful place. I have only seen pictures of it or movies set there, and it looks cool. But maybe it's terrible. I don't know. Well, no, I know. I've never been there. Tom has a 65-inch LG B6 OLED from 2016. Its power supply seems to be having some problems. He's looking into having it repaired, but the price of that is kind of high, so he's thinking he just might go ahead and buy a new TV altogether. He wouldn't mind going larger in screen size, because that's what people do. They have a 65-inch, can't buy another 65-inch, just get the bigger one. But the space he has for a TV is in his living room. It simply cannot fit the next size up at 77 inches. A 70-inch OLED would fit like a glove, but nobody makes that size. So how do you know?
Well,
so if you
he's right. Nobody makes that size.
Yeah. So how do you know how big it would be? Maybe it would be too big. Maybe it'd be too small. Anyways, if he's sticking with the 65-inch screen size, he figures it might as well be the best 65-inch OLED out there. But which OLED model wins that title? He's seen that the Sony A95L QD OLED has been ranked the highest in some TV shootouts, but given that it came out in 2023, does that still hold true? It's like so long in the tooth. He's also noticed the attractive price point on the 2024 LG C4 OLED, and reviews of that model give it a high score. So what did we say? Out of all the 65-inch OLEDs out there right now, which one should he get? So this is kind of an interesting question to me, because I do believe that there are substantive differences between TVs. I mean, that is undeniably true. Sure. But at the same time, when you're talking about like TVs at the highest level, are you really going to know this? Are you really going to oh, well, I'm so glad I got this Sony because I can totally tell that the black levels would be better on this than on the LG or whatever.
Yeah, no
the
side-by-side comparison happening. It's just individual in your room, yeah.
I would, so... I mean, I understand that you want that. I want to make sure I get the best one. They're all the best one. They're all pretty much
I mean, they're all really good. Like when I got a G3, because I got a 77-inch G3 that had the MLA, the micro lens array, and I already had a C2 before. Model year apart and then different technology. And I got to look at those and I'm like, yeah, if I do the test pattern, I do the brightest HDR content, it's like the G3 is capable of making some slightly brighter little specular highlights like that. It's objectively true. It can be measured. It can be verified. And yes, I can see it. But at the same time, I was like, it barely looks different than the C2 the vast majority of the time, which is why, when Tom was shopping for his OLED, I was like, yeah, no, get the C version or the B version, go larger and get the series down rather than going smaller and going the series up. Like the difference is just not big enough to be worth it. That's certainly my opinion anyway. Now, like that all said, if you're just like, what do I think for a living room setup right now is the best OLED to get? And my opinion is it would be like on a technical level, the LG G5, the newest G5 with that 4-stack tandem OLED panel. That one is visibly brighter all the time, like including in standard dynamic range if you want that. And I'm thinking living room setup, you very well might have ambient light. This isn't a blacked out room, I'm pretty sure, in a living room. And it's like, yeah, if you've actually got some windows or some glare during the day or something like that, like just genuinely being able to be brighter all the time, and it is visibly so on the G5. It is a true change this year. I much prefer the screen finish that LG uses on that G5, even though it is glossy, even though when the TV is completely off, you can go up to it and see yourself a bit like a mirror in there. They actually do suppress the reflections quite nicely in the finish that they've used. And what I like most about the LG choice that they've done for the screen finish is under all lighting conditions, black stays inky black. It just does not rise in black level at all, and I love that most. Samsung has their S95F. It's a quantum dot OLED, but they put a matte screen finish on there. And I mean, under the absolute worst, I just cannot stand seeing a reflection in there. I'll grant that the matte finish is better as far as that goes, but as soon as there's light in the room, and I mean just a small amount of light, the black just gets kind of gray from that matte finish, and you see the light spreads across. You don't see a reflection, but it all just spreads across that matte screen and kind of washes everything out. And I don't love the effect of that. I would way rather have the LG screen finish. Sony's, the brand new, they've got their Bravia 8 II, our favorite naming convention. That is the same quantum dot panel as that Samsung S95F, but with a glossy screen finish. So that is a contender. The Bravia 8 II is potentially a contender, but my personal preference overall is for the LG G5. Now, if that is too expensive, because it is not cheap, none of those are cheap. The Bravia 8 II is not cheap. The S95F is not cheap. The LG G5 is not cheap. If all of those are over your budget, do not beat yourself up about getting a C4 or a C5, because like I say, the vast majority of the time they look the same. The one that to me that stands out is the G5, but if it is too expensive, don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, that's what I think. Okay. So in this home theater room, he's been using a Denon X4400H receiver, and it's still going strong with no complaints from him about any of its performance. But they did recently get a projector upgraded, JVC RS2100, the same as the NZ7, and that projector has HDMI 2.1 inputs and support for 4K 120 and 8K via wobbling the projector's 4K resolution panels. Meanwhile, the X4400H only has HDMI 2.0 ports. So is this enough of an excuse to upgrade it to the Denon X4800H? He could still make use of the 4400H by moving it to the living room. Since it does have eARC, he could plug any HDMI 2.1 sources directly into his new OLED. But in his home theater, it would be very inconvenient to have to plug any HDMI 2.1 sources directly into the projector, which would be silly anyways, because I think they'll only have one or two HDMI ports anyways.
I don't even know if it has eARC, to be honest. I can't recall.
I don't see why it would, but whatever. With all the changes happening with Sound United, could it potentially be several years before we get any new Denon receiver models, or perhaps the current lineup is the final Denon lineup ever? So what do we think? Should he go ahead and buy a 4800H? Why the 48, not the 38 to start with? Does he have
I'm sure he was just thinking he had a 44, and how could he step down to a 3000 series when there's a 4000 series right there? I'm sure that was in his mind.
So the 44 and the 38 are more comparable than the 44 and the 48. Yeah. So if you have enough speakers and inputs and everything on your 44, the 38 is the more direct successor to the 44.
I mean, maybe he has
that.
a component video input that he just absolutely has to have translated to HDMI, because that's kind of the only feature difference in the 4800 versus the 3800. I think there's a Zone 3 thing that goes on there as well, but it doesn't sound like he's using that. If he were...
I don't know. The 3800 would be the one if you were absolutely dead set on doing this. The 3800 would be the way to go. In my mind,
have to ask, how many HDMI 2.1 sources do you have? Because he didn't even mention it. Like, it's really only gaming. That is the only thing. I know there are streaming boxes and stuff out there that advertise that they have an HDMI 2.1 output, but that is simply because they have like one feature like quick media switching or something along those lines. Like, there's nothing besides gaming consoles and high-end PCs that are doing 4K 120. And that's the only... So, I mean, if you aren't a gamer, then you don't need to do this at all. Now, it sounds like he's looking for an excuse. I would say get the display first and see how much money you actually have left over. And then if you do have enough money left over, sure, treat yourself to a 3800H. That'd be my answer.
Yeah, I agree with that. Infinite Gary, last week there were several news stories about LG Display's announcement that phosphorescence as opposed to fluorescent blue OLEDs can now be mass-produced, leading to all sorts of headlines about Dream OLED now being a reality. Okay, just stop reading like headlines. I'm not talking about Gary. I'm talking about like the whole reason these headlines are so stupid is because people read them and immediately comment on Twitter or whatever about them.
No reading the article, just the headline.
Yeah. Digging into those news stories a bit, it's clear that they're starting with small displays for phones or perhaps tablets and laptops, but they say the technology can be scaled up for eventual use in large TV displays. The mass production model is also using two different blue OLED layers, one phosphorescent and the other the standard fluorescent blue, which they say leads to the combined panel using about 15% less power. So is that it? Let's say this new PHOLED.
Phosphorescent OLED.
I like that. I like PHOLED.
Okay.
That's the first one in a while that I've not been mad about. PHOLED, which sounds like it's a fake OLED, which I love, as they're being called, make it to TVs in a few years. Will they offer a meaningful improvement in picture quality? I mean, how could we know? If so, in what way? Would it be the sort of improvement that would be evident all the time, including with SDR content, or would it just be yet another, we found a way to make OLEDs even brighter announcement? It's usually that latter thing. First of all, I don't really know that SDR content needs to get any better than it already is.
Yeah.
Because
the original OLEDs that didn't do HDR whatsoever nailed SDR. Yeah.
SDR is not a problem. It's like, will this car drive slower better? You're like, I don't know. I mean, does it need to? I mean, it's just, all it has to do is go slow, right? And this is kind of, SDR is like slow for OLED's like, oh my God, I'm not even trying.
Yeah.
It's just blowing things up. It's all it's doing, making things bigger, but it doesn't make it brighter unless you do some sort of, a bunch of stuff that you would turn off anyways, Gary.
Gary definitely
And we would recommend that you turn them off as well. If it's on edge enhancement or, artificial HDR in some way or, noise reduction or something along those lines, which we would, again, tell you to turn all that stuff off because it's just going to add a bunch of artifacts to your stuff or make things look weird. I think SDR is kind of a done deal. Like, I don't think we have to worry about that anymore.
The advantage is that it could show you SDR while using less power, drawing less electricity. That's the advantage. And that's a genuine advantage, but it's not visible.
Sure is.
It's not showing up to your eyes, but you see it on your power bill. That would be the advantage there. The reason why they're calling phosphorescent blue, because we already have phosphorescent green and red. That's been solved, but the blue has been the problem. And the reason that they're excited and calling that the dream is because that now gives the blue subpixel a similar lifespan to the red and the green. The problem with the fluorescent is that it's always had the shorter lifespan, and it is not as as power efficient, so you have to drive it harder to make it equally bright as the red and the green, which is also partly responsible for shortening its lifespan. So that's the advantages there, is that you can use less power. It's more efficient, so that's what's helping it use less power. And then the lifespan is more similar between all three subpixels, which helps reduce the chances of, the image retention effect or burn-in effect, that type of thing, where the subpixels are aging at different rates. So you start to see that unevenness in the subpixels, and you have to adjust them with the compensation cycles. Like, all of that gets reduced. So yeah, none of it is so much visibility. I mean, I suppose being more efficient, maybe they could be driven harder and get even brighter. I'm sure that's what the marketing would be on part of it, is that, yes, they did find a way to make it even brighter. But yeah, it's mostly the power savings and the expanded lifespan, which is good stuff. So I'm glad for that. I don't mind that.
So last week when we were talking about the Kaleidescape Strato M versus the Strato V, and whether someone who already owns an Apple TV 4K and Panasonic Ultra HD Blu-ray player should even consider the Kaleidescape at all, Rob mentioned Kaleidescape's lossless audio as being an advantage over Apple TV 4K's lossy audio. But hold up. Haven't we always been saying that lossless isn't inherently better sounding and that it's more about differences in mastering, with it being entirely possible to have a lossy soundtrack that still perceptually sounds every bit as good to our ears? What sounds different enough when streaming Apple TV 4K versus watching a Kaleidescape to actually make it that a compelling reason to buy a Strato player?
That is fair enough criticism, Gary. I was doing a little bit of shorthand in the span of time there when we were talking.
Right. Well, there's that, but again, even if so what you're assuming is that the same care or the same attention was being paid to the lossless audio that is, basically on the disc, the home release, which is what Kaleidescape offers, is the same as the lossy version that Apple has. The same care and attention was spent in creating that lossy version. I would argue, and I think that many people would agree, that that's not always the case. The lossy version that you get is some sort of automated process.
Almost
because
always, yeah.
It seems to take it's like, okay, well, most people don't have subwoofers, so no bass for you. And that's sort of the go-to.
Yeah, I mean, like that doesn't have to be. That is not inherent to the encoding process. But yeah, there is a fair amount of rolling off the deep bass on the streaming services for sure.
So while you're correct technically in saying that there can be a lossy version that perceptually can sound just as good as the lossless version, in practice, the lossy versions often are audibly inferior to the lossless
quite
versions.
Often dynamically compressed. The dynamic range, the difference between the quietest and the loudest is very often compressed on the streaming versions, or even to a less extent on the Apple TV 4K versions. They don't do a lot of dynamic range compression. But yeah, I was using that shorthand for what you typically get, not the technical capabilities of the systems, but what you typically get. I was shorthanding that, so that is on me. That was a mistake on my part. But mainly it's that it's not even that they're taking the exact same sound that was on the disc release. Like, Kaleidescape encodes their own. So yes, they're getting the master file from the studio. Maybe that's exactly the same as what went on the disc, but sometimes not. Sometimes the disc has been remastered versus the original master file. Kaleidescape does their own. They do their own encoding from the original master files there. So it's just more the consistency. You tend to get a better consistency from Kaleidescape. Now, that's not universal. It's not literally every movie in their lineup, because sometimes what they were given by the studio to sell has had its own limitations put in place, and there's nothing Kaleidescape can do about that. But in general, like, they really do care. They are individually encoding what they're selling, and you tend to get that highest quality, more consistent experience from Kaleidescape.
Yeah. Eliezer or Eli. I think it's got to be Eliezer. I don't remember. I don't know why I got it in my head that was Eli, so I apologize if I'm wrong about that. Eliezer. A couple of months ago, Eliezer replaced his old surround speakers with a new pair of PSB Alpha P3 compact bookshelf speakers. He's got some limitations in terms of speaker placement in his room, but through sheer trial and error, he kept moving his new surround speakers just an inch or two at a time. He also played with angling them just a bit. Once he thought he had their position optimized, he reran the Odyssey, and he's quite sure the sound has noticeably improved over his old surround speakers and their previous placement. Okay. That was not unexpected. He did go to all that effort after all, but what he wasn't expecting was overall improvement he seems to be hearing in the bass. He's got an SVS PC2000 Pro cylinder sub, and there's still a couple of specific frequencies that are a bit untamed, he says. The whole house still rattles every now and then, but he definitely had a few bass problems before that have now gone away, even though he didn't make any changes to his sub. So is the new surround speaker positioning helping out somehow by canceling out some of those prior bass problems? Or maybe he's just hearing his surround speakers more clearly, and that's tricking his brain into not noticing the bass problems as much. What do we think's going on here? I don't think that those surround speakers and you're spending any time with them has done anything to the bass.
Okay.
In any way, shape, or form. I can't imagine how you spending time with the remember, they have a crossover, which is way before this low bass that you're describing that's
not
shaking
playing
your house.
all the time. The surround speakers. They're quite often not playing anything.
Psychologically, there's a bunch of stuff that could be going on here, but the thing that the two things I would look at from your perspective as you're thinking back on what happened is, did you really only move the surround speakers, or did you also move your seat a little bit, or also move maybe just nudge a sub over a little bit, maybe forget to put it back or something along those lines? I mean, things can be changed that you're not, you maybe forgot about, or you thought, well, that doesn't really count because I only moved it a little bit. And in the case of bass and you're in a room, it can make a lot of difference. You did rerun Odyssey.
You reran Odyssey. That's my number one suspicion, that you reran Odyssey. Yep.
Which could have made a huge difference as far as, if Odyssey was not run as properly, or maybe there was something, you just got a weird measurement the first time.
Well, and there's
could be a lot of things there.
There's no chance that you literally used exactly the same microphone positions the first time you did it versus this most recent time. I don't think you have like some kind of laser guidance system that got you to put the exact same 8 different microphone positions in your room. You had different microphone positions when you ran it this time, and thankfully turned out a bit better this time. That's absolutely my suspicion on what happened to the bass. And
the other thing that could be going on here is, as far as when you're noticing that your house is shaking, that's very content dependent. I mean, it could just be that the movies that you're watching, the shows that you're watching now don't have as much low bass, or when you are watching those, you're like, oh, people are asleep or whatever, let me turn it down, and it's not happening as often, and it just could be a coincidence sort of thing.
Well, it's also just specific frequencies. If you hit a resonant frequency on one movie and you still get a whole bunch of low bass, but it just happens to not have that one resonant frequency, then absolutely it's going to sound different.
So back when the U.S. first introduced new tariffs, we have tariffs? I've never heard of it. Starting with Mexico, it might have come up. Starting with Mexico and Canada, and then ever since, with what seems to be nearly daily tariff changes. That's because our leadership is laser focused. Laser focused. They definitely have a plan. I mean, it's not just them.
It doesn't feel like it's been super long lasting and etched in concrete. These things.
I mean, come on. It's very brutalist.
Few changes going on.
Eliezer started listening to a much broader range of news radio stations from other countries to hear some different perspective. He's been impressed with the coverage offered by CBC Radio out of Canada. It was backstabbing.
Is it the baby pug? It's the baby pug.
The baby pug. I saw him yesterday, though, so I'm not freaking out as much. He had the zoomies. He was so cute. Anyways, CBC Radio out of Canada. So does Rob have any recommendations for other Canadian news outlets that would be available to him either via TuneIn Radio or iHeartRadio? So, Rob, let's indoctrinate some Americans.
So I'm not the final word on this by any means, and I would be pointing anybody at CBC. They're going to absolutely be the top choice, but you already found them, of course. So I'll just mention that we have a whole bunch of, because they're city by city specific. City News just covers all the major cities, and it is local coverage, and it's national headlines. But this is our it's meant for you're listening in the car for the traffic and the weather, and you're getting the same news updates every hour, right? Just over and over and over again. So it's that format. that. So this is not in-depth reporting by any means, but City, like if you just want to get a quick snapshot, hey, what's happening in Toronto right now? City News Toronto, it's going to give you that update and really, really quickly. So that can be useful. So the other one that you might not have found is CTV News. The national CTV national news is available on TuneIn. And so yeah, that's like one of our major, broadcasters here. Think of like CBS in the States. We've got CTV and Global and a few other stations in Canada. A similar idea, the national broadcast channels. So CTV News is available. The national version of it is available. And that is some good in-depth reporting from them if you want to get a slightly different take from CBC. I check them out. And then there are a whole bunch of podcasts that are available on TuneIn and iHeartRadio. So I can't vouch for all of these. I found a list that has some that I know. CTV's Power Play is very good. Just the Global News Hour isn't broadcast as a radio station, but it is available as a podcast version. So yeah, if you want to get those summaries, you can get them in podcast form. And I'll have a link that I found that's like 35 different Canadian news podcasts that you can get through those services. Like I say, I can't vouch for all of them. I certainly haven't tried them all out, but there's a handful in there that you can look through and give a try and see if you like any of them.
All right. Sebastian in the UK. Sebastian appreciated our discussion about his upcoming house extension and which used gear to keep an eye out for, since he's always been able to find good deals by buying used audio equipment. We mentioned our top AV receiver choices for his future 5.2.4 setup. In particular, we thought there'd be a good chance of finding an Onkyo RZ50 unit. Mm-hmm. He's always been careful to do his research before making any purchases, and the Onkyo RZ50 does indeed seem like it would fit every need. His needs very well. But after a full week of searching the secondhand, a full week, boy, you really put some effort in this. Secondhand AV market in earnest, and not just for the RZ50. He's been leaning towards simply going for a good sale price on the brand new receiver. In particular, his local Peter Tyson store is selling the Pioneer Elite LZ505 model for £450 less than the RZ50, which was already within his budget, even brand new, and with a free extended warranty. Oh, free extended warranty. Because those extended warranties never not cover things. He researched the Pioneer LX505 model, and it appears to be almost identical to the Onkyo RZ50. The biggest feature difference he came across was that, for some reason, the Pioneer only offers a global crossover setting that gets applied to all speakers that are set to small, while the RZ50 gives you independent crossover frequencies. So first up, is that a deal breaker somehow?
Now, he had Atlantic Tech speakers all around, which are like the THX design. So
you're crossing them over at 80, whether you like it or not, because that's the place to cross them. That's how they're designed.
That is, for you, not going to be a problem. They are absolutely designed to cross over at 80 globally, and that's going to work out very nicely with the speakers that you want. I mean, that's a bit of happenstance, but
that is happens. So for the rest of you out there who are like, well, I don't have Atlantic Tech speakers. What about me? Would a global crossover be a deal breaker? Not in my book. There are definitely situations where you can find yourself saying, oh man, the crossover for my usually front speakers, I wish I could lower or raise because of how the room is interacting and where the subs are, and the crossover isn't as clean as I would like it to be. And if I raised it a couple, 20 hertz or lowered it 20 hertz, it would sound more even. That can definitely happen.
And you can certainly have I used satellite speakers for my surrounds or my overheads, and honestly, they need a 150 hertz crossover. Yes. And if I had to set all my speakers to that could actually start to get noticeable, like the transition between my center speaker and the subs crossed at 150. That's high enough that it's like, I really would prefer to keep my front speakers at a lower crossover, but I'm going to have a gap in those overhead satellites unless I move it up to 150. So it's like, it could be nice to have independent crossovers in that situation.
So you can make the argument, but I would say that in most cases, like global crossover to 80 hertz, just fine. And even with the satellite speakers that Rob is talking about, the satellite speakers Rob's talking about, not really playing down much lower than, 150 hertz anyway, so whether or not you have a crossover there doesn't make any difference. There's no sounds,
and you compromise with like a 100 hertz crossover, and you have a little gap in those satellite speakers, but overall it's just the better compromise. You can make do with a global crossover, but in your case in particular, it's in fact very well suited to the speakers that luckily you chose.
And then secondly, he found reports of a couple of concerns with the LX505. Specifically, some owners have posted about the settings menu freezing up sometimes when the menu button on the remote is pressed. Any idea if this was ever fixed?
I do not know.
Sure it was. I would doubt it. I don't even know if there's anybody over at Pioneer answering the phone anymore, I'll be honest with you.
Well, this was the thing. Like, one of the reasons it didn't come up for me is just because the company that now owns Onkyo and Pioneer and Integra, which is Vox International, same company that owns Klipsch these days, part of their premium audio company under the Vox International umbrella. They ran into licensing issues with the Pioneer brand in North America. So they can still use the Pioneer brand in other parts of the world, but in North America, there's basically no more Pioneer AV receivers available due to a brand licensing issue, no other reason. I was mainly talking about Onkyo and Integra just because that's what comes to mind for me these days. But yeah, the LX505, it is the sister model to the RZ50. They are almost identical on the inside. I don't know why there is that crossover difference. I have no clue where that came from. But yeah, if an RZ50 fit your needs, an LX505 will as well.
Yeah. And then Audio Science Review noted that if the Pioneer's amplifiers are pushed to their limits and kept at their limits for over 30 seconds, then a pseudo protection mode kicks in. It doesn't shut off or go silent, but the output wattage gets clamped down to about 25%. And the problem is that it stays there until the power is cycled on the AV receiver, rather than returning to normal operation if the power draw goes back down. So, should any of that prevent him from buying the Pioneer LX505? My dude, if you are pushing the amplifiers to their limits for 30 seconds or more, there's bigger problems going on.
Which is like, that's an amplifier test bench type of scenario.
Yes.
But what kind of music or movie is
just 45 straight seconds of white noise at
or
115 dB.
A single sine wave tone, just sustained, no changes, no dynamics, anything.
You would turn it down anyway.
And honestly, I kind of like that Pioneer handles things this way, because they're like, well, we're not going to literally cut it silent, because who knows, maybe you're using this system as a PA system, and if we just completely shut it off, there's actually like a safety concern or something like that. They're like, and look, 25% of power, it is 6 decibels quieter, which is that's very audible. That's perceptually about half as loud. You'll
still hear it. It's not like it turns it off.
Yeah, that's right. So, nope, that's not a reason to avoid it. And I think you'll be very happy with the LX505. I think it's a good choice, especially given that you lucked out by having speakers that are ideal for that crossover scenario. Yeah.
Henry is still agonizing over whether to spring for the Kaleidescape all-in-one player or not, and let alone deciding between the Strado M and Strado V. To be honest, he wouldn't even be considering Kaleidescape if it weren't for the fact that the writing seems to be on the wall for Ultra HD Blu-rays and physical media in general, and the price for streaming keeps going up, while a bunch of movies disappear every week, sometimes popping back up on a different service, but sometimes becoming unavailable anywhere. Mm-hmm. He has redeemed a few movie codes from discs he has purchased, but that quickly led to having more than one digital movie library, as some codes only work on some services and not others. He's bought a handful of movies from Apple and a handful from Amazon Prime, but then he stopped altogether because he hates the idea of needing to organize a hodgepodge of different apps and potentially having things removed or changed on him with nothing he can do about it. So if he were rich, Kaleidescape would probably be a no-brainer for him, but money is a concern for him, so spending $2,000 just on the player, let alone $4,000 if he wants a 4K resolution Strado V, isn't something he can just do on a whim. So on top of that, what if Kaleidescape ever goes under? Or what if, a few years from now, he's past the warranty period, his Strado player breaks, and Kaleidescape has already moved on to a new lineup? Yeah, because that M might not ever be replaced, to be honest with you. I think they're trying that out, and we'll never see it again. So if you want it, this is your chance. Didn't we mention someone having a slightly older Kaleidescape that couldn't be repaired, and they gave him a bunch of credits, but he still ended up out of pocket a fair amount in order to replace the broken hardware?
That was Carl. Yep.
Yeah. It just freaks him out. So, should he just wait? Maybe Kaleidescape hardware will get to be cheaper, or do we think Apple movies might improve to the point where there's really no audio or video quality difference? I don't think they're going to get any better. I think that if anything, they'll stay the same. They will upgrade to like 8K if they decide doing that, or if a new audio version comes out.
Kaleidescape's going to go to 8K. They already joined the 8K association. They'll be the first ones to do it if anybody does.
you need to stop thinking about all this stuff to start with. And I think you need to do what I should have done, and I wish I had done, which was you should make yourself a server.
Sure.
You should create yourself a library. You should buy the discs, create yourself a library, and then use your Plex player or whatever. Because once you have the discs and you have them stored someplace on a drive, then you are kind of done. And that way you get everything that you want, all the things you're worried about. You want to be able to stream them anywhere. Plex can do all this stuff for you. Can. And you don't have to worry about streaming service. You don't have to worry about it disappearing. You don't have to worry about them changing it on you. To me, that's what you should be doing. I think this idea of getting somebody, it's a lot of work, which is why I didn't do it. And why I wish I had, but I didn't do it. So now all my discs are gone and I'm starting over again, which is fine. I don't care. But you should do this because you care, and you can do it for. It's going to cost you more money if you value your time.
I see, yeah.
But if you don't value your time, if you're like, I want to do this so I can save money and my time, it doesn't count, then the actual cost of doing this is going to be much lower than buying any of these other things, because you'll just buy the discs, or take the discs you have, rip them, and then go from there. I think that this is... you are the candidate for creating a Plex server.
And by the way, your Plex server can be an NVIDIA Shield Pro and a USB hard drive. Because you can get, what is the maximum capacity is 36 terabytes now, I think, is like the biggest hard drive that's out there. Now, like they went nuts with that. Like you can get really quite affordable 24 terabyte hard drives, no problem. And it's like that. You can store a lot of movies on a 24 terabyte drive. Like when I put together my original NAS systems, those were 4 3 terabyte drives. That was 12 terabytes. I can double that with a single USB hard drive for like $300 these days. It's really not. So it doesn't have to be complicated, is what I'm getting at. You don't even have to have a NAS or anything like that. It can be an NVIDIA Shield Pro with a USB hard drive plugged into it for way less than a Kaleidescape cost. Yeah, so I agree with Tom, because if you're agonizing over a $2,000 price point, I don't think you should do it. Like, that's a lot of movies you can buy. That's a lot of hard drives you can buy and put together your own server. Now, the downside is, if the number one priority for you was getting movies at home as quickly as possible, then that, out of everything here, that's Kaleidescape's biggest advantage, is that they get the movies at home earlier than anything else. But yeah, the rest of it, if you're willing to wait for the disc to come out, then yeah, your money would be better spent on an NVIDIA Shield Pro and a USB hard drive.
Well, and you're concerned that Kaleidescape might go away. I mean, it has.
They went bankrupt once.
It already went bankrupt once, and there's no doubt in my mind that it at some point is going to go away, and maybe all these streaming services are going to go away in some form. So you need to, if that's the kind of thing that's really bothering you, that you want to know that you have permanency, well, then owning the disc, not having your house flooded, and then having a digital backup somewhere is the solution. That is the solution. We'll do one more, then we're going to be done.
Oh, okay.
I gotta go get ready. I got a thing.
I might be able to carry on after, but we'll see what happens here. Yeah.
We're pretty close to the bottom here, it feels like.
Getting there.
So once Harman, a Samsung company, completes its purchase of Masimo Consumer, which is, of course, Sound United that we talked about, there's like no chance of the overlapping brands survive, right? So after Samsung bought Harman, there was some consolidation and winding down of sub-brands. For example, Infinity still exists, but only in car audio. And when was the last time we saw a Harman card and receiver? Mm-hmm. But adding Sound United to the mix, if they're really going to keep both Denon and their new JBL modern audio receivers competing head-to-head in the same market at the same price points, are they really going to do that? Are both Marantz and Arkham going to survive, both Mark Levinson and Class A? And then think about all the speaker brands Harman now owns that compete in a very similar markets and price brackets: Boston Acoustics, JBL Stage, Polk and JBL Studio, Deftex and JBL HDI. Which I don't know what HDI is, but whatever. And the one that really concerns Sasi is Bowers and Wilkins and Revel. or Revell. Just business-wise, it honestly can't make sense to keep all those brands, can it? How would Samsung honestly differentiate enough? And surely they'll be looking to share technology and manufacturing across brands as much as possible, which is what they do with Denon and Marantz. He'd like to hear our thoughts about how we think this merging of Sound United and Harman is going to go, all under the control of Samsung. Well, first of all, Dolby Vision is dead.
Can you imagine if all of a sudden the newest Denon and Marantz AV receivers can pass through everything except Dolby Vision?
Nothing gets Dolby Vision. Screw you, Dolby.
Amazing. I mean, it's not, because the JBL receivers can pass through Dolby Vision just fine, but that would be amazing.
Just think about it. They have cornered the market on AV receivers. They could strangle Dolby Vision.
It's going to be that new whatever the heck what was the name of the thing they teamed up with Google and YouTube for their own
GMIH. I don't remember.
Oh no, not the interface, but the audio format that's like a supposed competition for Dolby Atmos, like similar to how you got
I've already
HDR10 plus, and then yeah.
Okay, so. Yes, I believe that consolidation is inevitable, that there's no point to having all these competing products under the same umbrella. Yeah. Some of these products, like Denon and Marantz, have been around for a very long time, and they have enough market share that getting rid of them entirely doesn't necessarily make sense, but then maybe it does. It's not like you stop selling Marantz receivers and suddenly all those Marantz fans are like, well, I'm never buying another receiver. They're going to have to they will find something else to buy. Now, they may get mad at you and decide never to buy from you, but, whatever. It's just the price of doing business. I was thinking about some of these brands, like Marantz and Denon, which are essentially the same. I mean, they're almost exactly the same. And not only do they have to differentiate themselves from other products under the Harman banner, but they also have to differentiate themselves from each other, which is always I've never understood why they both exist. Like once they became essentially the same receiver but with slightly different feature sets, it was like the Marantz ones made sense because we had pre-outs. That was like their big thing. But is that really important?
Or they had the 7.1 analog inputs, and the Denons never had that back when we cared about 7.1 analog inputs.
Yeah. So I could see Denon and Marantz doing this, where Denon is like the entry level to mid range.
But then, does it also make sense to keep the JBL Modern Audio lineup, or does that just get amalgamated all under Denon, right?
Yeah. So you end up with this. Are we going to have basically all these receivers essentially the same receiver with slight tweaks here and there, and then you're just looking for the one that's on sale that day, the day that you're shopping.
I mean, given how
it's not great,
incredibly close in price point, and then feature-wise, Onkyo, Pioneer Elite, and Integra all became under Vox. Like, I can envision similarities, but I mean, I guess the honest question is, it's cost-benefit ratio, right? Like, how much does it cost them to basically release the same receiver 4 times under 4 different brand names, but like it's all developed on the same platform? They have slightly different front face plates, and then they keep all 4.
It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, they keep all 4 brands going. Like, does that actually earn them a little bit more money because it keeps the fans of the individual brand names happy, as opposed to forcing, a Marantz fan to switch over to Arcam? Like, does it just keep those fans happy, and that actually makes them more money versus closing a brand down? Would that save them enough money that it's worth potentially losing those customers? I don't know. I'm not a business person, so I imagine that calculation might get done. But if Vox decided that it was worth keeping Onkyo, Pioneer Elite, and Integra all in the lineup with almost identical offerings, the Integra usually had like an extra XLR input or something like that, right? But like really similar. I could see Samsung ultimately deciding on that same
somebody path over there is looking at the consumer base and doing Venn diagrams essentially, and they want to know what the overlap is of these people. Are these people the same consumer? Like, so look at Denon and Marantz buyers. Are they the same person? Are they being sold the same income, the same age brackets, you know what I mean? The same, all these other things. If they're overlapping too much, then you can get rid of one, and then those people should switch to the other one.
Or you just combine their brand names. You just mash them together. Yeah.
Denon Marantz is now the new receiver.
I mean, they were D&M Holdings back in the day, right? That was Denon Marantz was the D&M.
Yeah, and doing that, and like I said, I could see them going like Denon for like the entry level to mid level, and then Marantz for the an almost identical mid level, like the 3800, like an almost identical one, but with pre-outs or something, and then up from there. So there's no longer any flagship Denon receivers.
Yeah, like maybe Arcam is reserved to be the pre-pro brand. So it's like you have
which I think makes sense. Yeah,
you have the entry to mid level receivers Denon, the mid to high level receivers are Marantz, and the pre-pros are Arcam. Like it could be separated that way. Speaker wise, like I don't think Boston Acoustics lives. That's been wound down by Sound United themselves, and I don't see Boston Acoustics surviving. Polk and Deftech, which of course were acquired by Sound United because those were Sandy Gross speaker brands, Golden Ear being the other one, and Golden Ear got bought by Bose, right? Didn't Bose buy Golden Ear? Just recently.
That makes sense.
But Polk and Deftech, I think they did a good job of differentiating themselves already, because Polk is like the ring radiator tweeters, and then Deftech is the bipole speaker designs, and those aren't replicated by other Harman brands. So I think those ones have a good chance of surviving. Bowers and Wilkins and Revel like surviving together, I see no issues there because they go for very different sound signatures, and those fans are ingrained. Bowers and Wilkins B&W speaker fans are like ingrained. They are
not
B&W
the same people.
fans.
Yeah.
And Revel fans are Revel fans. I don't see any problem there. Also at the very, very high end, Mark Levinson in Class A, I don't see any problem there, because it's like, you're only selling a dozen of these things every year anyway, so why close one of them down? Like, it's just...
What's the point? Yeah, and I agree with all of that. So Boston Acoustics, the one thing about Boston Acoustics, so I toured the Boston Acoustics facility many years ago, and it was a very good experience, but they do a lot of in-house driver creation for their, or at least they did. I don't know if they do anymore, but they were able to design and test and manufacture their own drivers and other parts of the the cabinets and everything else too. But they were doing a lot of that stuff in house. So does Boston Acoustics like completely disappear? Do they get funneled into creating like their brand is now sound bars, or
or maybe they're more like an OEM type of situation, and it's like their drivers end up in other brand products type of thing. Yeah,
that's right. And then they're making drivers and cabinets and everything else for the other brands that are within.
Like I definitely would expect there to be some, like, not necessarily outward brand facing, but behind the scenes consolidation. Like there's no way they're gonna bring all these brands in and keep completely separate manufacturing stuff. Like platforms are gonna get combined and stuff like that. That's the only way that makes business sense. But yeah, to me, it really is the question of, what is the cost for just keeping the brand going versus how much would we save by closing the brand down and then maybe losing those fans? Doing that calculus is up to people who make a whole lot more money than me. So I think that's what it'll come down to.
Yeah. All right. So are you going to keep going without me?
No, that's okay.
I'm
two
fine questions left.
Yeah, we got Tim and Mosin. Ilongo sent in a question too, which is like time sensitive. I'll have to email him back. But that came in on Monday morning anyway, so I had already cut off the list.
All right. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We thank Eli or Eliezer, Larry, and Tim for going to avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and sending us a PayPal donation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Eliezer, Larry, and Tim, thank you very much for those PayPal donations. That was very nice.
We also want to thank our 131 patrons over at patreon.com.
We sure do. That is patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So big thanks to our 131 patrons over there.
Andrew tried to help Rob out with the alert about Walmart Canada. So thank you for that, Andrew. That's nice of you to think of us, or him.
Very much so. Thank you for trying. I'm sorry I didn't see that until it was far too late.
And we got notes of gratitude from Tom, Infinite Gary, Larry, Sebastian, Harry, Sasi, and Tim. Thank you for thanking us.
Yeah, that was Tom, Infinite Gary, Larry, Sebastian, Henry, actually, not a Harry, but pretty close there.
Did I say Sasi Harry?
And Tim.
You
did say, yeah, but we're very late in this podcast. So thank you all very much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We very much appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.